BLT, crispy chicken, fish sandwiches, brisket, or pulled pork. Okay, you get the idea. They make a lot of delicious food to the same standard as their famous roast beef sandwiches, and now I'm starving. I'm going to go to Maverick's Real Roast Beef off Lexington and Roseville, and you need to go too. Check out their menu at mavericksbeef.com.
Reach your highest level of consciousness and well-being with metamorphosisconnections.com. Metamorphosisconnections.com is an online directory of the best holistic and metaphysical practitioners to help you make your most informed choices. You can search metamorphosisconnections.com for classes, events, wellness and life coaches, plus metaphysical products and shops. You can also search for a wide array of healers from all modalities, including EFT, sound healing, energy healing, light therapy, ancestral healing, shamanic healing, reflexology, past life regressions, hypnotherapy, yoga, and more. And if you're not sure where to start, the search feature on metamorphosisconnections.com is tailored to help both those who know what they are looking for and those who are just starting. Come explore the possibilities for your higher self by visiting metamorphosisconnections.com. Their experienced practitioners can guide both beginners and those that are already on their spiritual journey. That's metamorphosisconnection.com, your link to direct you on your spiritual transformation.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for a chance of rain tonight with a low around 40, Thursday sunny with a high near 60, and Friday a chance for rain with a high around 73. 15 years of Matt McNeil on AM 950 calls for a celebration. Join us Sunday, March 30th at Crooner Supper Club from 2 to 5 p.m. for a special dinner, video tributes, and a live onstage conversation with Nancy Nelson interviewing Matt. Don't miss it. Get tickets now at am950radio.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. There are things people experience but never talk about. A shadow moving in the corner, flickering of the lights, a disembodied voice. We invite you to talk with us. Share your story, share your experience, because this isn't just your story. This is our story. This is GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
And this is GhostBox Radio on AM 950, where every night we talk about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. My name is Greg Bakun. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, halfway through the week. I hope everyone is having a fantastic week. And, you know, I talk about the weather quite a bit. And my dear friend Brett, who was talking about the weather before we start, you know, this week has been really nice, very mild and very spring-like. So I want that to keep going, obviously. Rain is nice too, but I did notice that at least so far, the forecast for Sunday is some snow. So hopefully that doesn't really happen at all. Meanwhile, in Eden Prairie, we have Mr. Adam helping us out tonight, as he always does. How are you doing tonight, Adam?
Doing well tonight. How are you, sir?
I'm all right. You know, we got a great program tonight, and we are going to be talking about a new book that just came out through Llewellyn Publishing. And I was sent this book, I think, back in I might even been the end of December into January, and I was really excited for that. And I think this is going to be a great conversation tonight, and I want to make sure that everybody has this. Has the opportunity to get this book and to understand what this is. Tonight, our guest is author Chris Carter. He's an Oxford-trained philosopher and is the author of 4 highly acclaimed books and several scholarly articles. His latest book is The Case for the Afterlife, which argues that the case for the afterlife could be proven beyond all reasonable doubt entirely on the basis of evidence. And some of his previous books are Science in the Afterlife, Science in the Near-Death Experience, and Science and Psychic Phenomena, The Fall of the House of Skeptics. I am very happy to welcome Chris Carter. Welcome to GhostBox Radio.
Thanks for having me, Greg. Nice to be here.
Very nice to have you tonight. Thank you very much. And, you know, these books, you know, the theme and stuff, I gotta ask, first of all, because there's a very it's quite the heavy claim here that you say that the case for the afterlife could be proven beyond all reasonable doubt, entirely basis of evidence. Now, of course, I full disclosure here, Chris, I come from a spot that I do believe. So it's not like you have to try to convince me or anything, but I do believe. I'm very curious about the topic for the book, though.
Well, Greg, in the book, I back up everything that I claim to, the claims that I make. Essentially, I consider 5 independent lines of evidence, all very different from each other, and all pointing in the same conclusion. And I make the claim that the existence of an afterlife can be proven beyond all reasonable doubt, not beyond all conceivable doubt, because that's an impossible claim. That's an impossible standard to meet when we're dealing with factual matters. Because, of course, we can always imagine, we can always conceive or imagine of some alternatives. But I argue that the claim has been proven beyond all reasonable doubt.
What is what are we calling reasonable doubt?
I argue in the book that something is proven beyond all reasonable doubt when we have good reasons to believe that a claim is true and no good reason to believe that the claim may be false. I mean, I really think that is the gold standard. It's the gold standard in law. It's the gold standard in when we're evaluating any sort of evidence, whether it's history, the results of a scientific finding. We cannot achieve mathematical certainty when we're dealing with factual matters.
Do we have? I mean, you said there's five things. Can you give us any, like, one or something, so to kind of understand where you're going with that?
Well, the five lines of evidence that I consider are deathbed visions, near-death experiences, apparitions, children who claim to remember a previous life, and seeming communication from the departed via human mediums.
And I've seen, and just trying to look up here real fast here. Now, are you yourself a medium?
No, absolutely not.
But you are. But you do believe that mediums is a way to help give evidence to the afterlife.
Well, it's not just me. I mean, I talk about the British and American Societies for Psychical Research. The British Society was founded in 1882 in Cambridge, England, with Henry Sidgwick, a philosopher at Cambridge, as its first president. 2 years later, in 1884, the American Society was formed with William James, a philosopher at Harvard University, as its first president. And these societies included some of the most elite scientists, philosophers, physicians, and lawyers and other scholars on both sides of the Atlantic. To make a long story short, by the early years of the 20th century, so approximately 25 years after the founding of these two societies, the evidence was considered strong enough by the members such that almost all of the original surviving members were convinced of the reality of the afterlife. So it's not just me. It's a lot of extremely impressive. A lot of very impressive people have been impressed by the evidence, put it that way.
Sure. Now, where did your journey start with all this? In terms of, first of all, your interest in the afterlife. Has this been a lifelong thing for you?
No, I don't think so. I suppose, like everybody else, I always wondered, but I always thought it was just one of those unsolvable mysteries. While I was a student in a different country, in my first year there, I was living in a college dormitory and one one of my friends, he was trying to convince me to join him and two other graduate students to spend our next year living in a farmhouse, which lay on the outskirts of town, which is owned by our college.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wasn't sure as an expat. I wasn't sure if I wanted to leave the dormitory. It was just much closer to town in college. But he was not desperate, but he was determined to convince me. And he ended up telling me that the place had a ghost. Well, his words caught my attention. I asked, has anybody seen anything? And he said no, but there's been a lot of strange sounds reported. So I decided to see the place for myself. It turned out to be a 2-story medieval stone house.
Nice.
Yeah. And the college carpenter had his workshop on the property. I stopped in for a chat, and soon after introducing myself, I came straight out with it. I just said, they tell me the place is haunted. And he said, well, I don't know myself, but the carpenter before me, he swore the place was haunted. Well, that was enough for me. I decided to move in with my friends and spend basically a year living in a farmhouse, which is apparently haunted. To make a long story short, I did see and hear some things which I could not readily explain. And that just sort of, nothing terribly dramatic. Doors occasionally slamming for no apparent reason, things like that.
Sure.
But it did kickstart my interest. And after I graduated, I started to reflect on my strange experiences in the old farmhouse. And so I took a trip to the local library, and I was surprised by the sheer volume of research that had been performed over the past 150 years or so on these subjects. I began to read, and I became fascinated.
Wow. Yeah. No, I mean, and the idea of and I don't know if you've heard of this theory. I actually brought this up on Monday with another author that was on, talked about medieval farmhouse and stuff. And I've always been fascinated by something called the stone tape theory. I don't know if you ever heard of the stone tape theory, where it's like there is something so, and people often say traumatic, but I would say just powerful happened in a place that is, all the walls are stone, that it's almost like a recording. It gets trapped into the stone, and that becomes residual energy that happens over and over and over again. And especially in places like parts of the UK and stuff that run into such things. I find the different aspects of the paranormal very fascinating, whether or not they're true or not, because I haven't really actually seen the stone tape theory in work. I do find all that stuff very fascinating too.
Yeah. No, I've heard of that. I don't think that was what was going on in the farmhouse. I was going to say something. Yes. All 4 of my books really can be considered as attacks on the skeptical fortress. But this one is much more tightly focused. I like to say that if my first 3 books were an armada, then this last one is more along the lines of a surgical strike.
Sure.
It's much more tightly focused. It's much more self-contained. It really does put the finishing touches on the work that I began with the first 3 books.
So this 4th book is kind of, you've been building up to this. You've been able to build up to this and put those ideas together and kind of have this I don't know, this really like you said, tight book that gives it really lays it out what you want to tell people.
Yeah, it's all in one place as opposed to being spread out over 3 different volumes.
That's incredible. No, that's great. And how long did it take you to put this 4th book together?
Good question. Oh, I don't know. I wasn't working on it constantly full time. I was working out when I could, when I had time. It was certainly easier to write, given that I'd written the other books, because I knew what I was talking about and had all my ducks in a row. I don't know. Start to finish, maybe a year. Then a lot of polishing, working with my publisher.
Absolutely. When you were writing the other 3 books, did you always have this 4th book in mind? I mean, you always kind of thought about that you're writing as, I don't want to put words in your mouth, like it's like, but is it like in a sense like a series that this is like this is what you've been building up to?
Not really. It was more like, not, I wouldn't call it an afterthought, but it was like, what can I do now? And also, it had been a few years since I finished my 3rd book, and I'd had some additional thinking and have had additional arguments with the so-called skeptics, some additional insights. And so I just decided that I wanted to put the whole thing into one place, wrap it all together in one neat package, and also add a few more insights. The book is organized differently than the first 3 books. There's part 1, the toolkit, part 2, the evidence, part 3, rest in peace, super ESP. The toolkit, I'm proud of it because it essentially gives the reader the tools necessary to critically evaluate both the evidence and the so-called skeptical objections.
Interesting. That sounds, that sounds pretty incredible, actually. The book, it can be found. Let's see here. The book, The Case for the Afterlife. It talked about that it can be found normal places, your Amazons, your Barnes and Noble. But you had mentioned on Llewellyn's site, if you get it through that site, that there's a little bit more that people can find there that you've done, right?
Well, if they go to the Llewellyn website and they look up my book, they'll find a description of the book. They'll find endorsements from various people. And what they also may find most interesting is an essay that I wrote for my publisher titled, Can We Prove There's an Afterlife? And it basically summarizes my thoughts. So it'll give those who are interested a good idea of the way I write and the way I think.
So once again, the book is called The Case for the Afterlife, and we're going to be talking about this hour with our guest, author Chris Carter. If anyone has questions about this or have had a chance to read it, put it in the comments. You can also give us a call, 952-946-6205. What we're going to do right now, let's take our first break. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with author Chris Carter. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. Greg Bakun here. Like you, I love good, fresh, delicious food. So I want to tell you about this treasure in Roseville called Maverick's Real Roast Beef. Maverick's has the best roast beef sandwiches I've ever had. Made fresh every order. Add fries or onion rings dropped in the fryer when ordered, and you have a winning combination. Maverick's Real Roast Beef has a lot more than roast beef, so check out their website, mavericksbeef.com, or check out their restaurant on Lexington in Roseville. Greg Bakun here. I love historic tours of Minneapolis and seeing everything it has to offer. But if you know me, I like to include a little spooky in my tours, which is why I found the perfect combination. Minneapolis Trolley Tours does this amazing candlelight ghost tour that you have to check out. It's an extremely immersive experience. It's a trolley trip that starts out at a haunted mansion, traveling around Minneapolis locations, exposing ghost stories that the public and business owners would rather left untold. Then a tour of the aforementioned haunted mansion where ghosts of past residents from the 1800s reside, plus a lot of surprises to discover. Next, experience Gertrude's After Hours. Did I mention Gertrude is the mansion's most famous ghost? Maybe she'll show up. And you finish up the tour at Gertrude's Lounge in the haunted basement of the mansion with refreshments and Q&A. The trolleys are climate controlled and the mansion is restored to perfection. Check out MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for more information. Are you one of thousands of individuals who know you have psychic abilities but don't know how to tap into your higher self? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who offers classes that can help you reach your goals. Refined Divine holds classes Monday and Thursday at her 2 locations and via Zoom. Classes consist of manifestation, learning psychic abilities, shadow work, and healing trauma. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
This is Psychic Medium Deb. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
If you own a holistic or metaphysical business and are looking to expand, then you need to be listed on metamorphosisconnections.com. It's a network where you can grow with like-minded practitioners and reach new clients. Metamorphosisconnections.com is an online directory you need to list yourself and your business. Our platform makes it easy for you to create listings of your products and services, and you can also choose to list your classes, events, and so much more. Metamorphosisconnections.com helps you create weekly and monthly promotional ads targeted towards your potential clients and promotes them for you via social media and newsletter. There are clients searching for your specialty right now. Let us help them find you. Start your listing today so you can share your own unique gifts and talents by finding the level of membership that best fits your needs. Let us help you reach your clients that are searching for what you do. Visit metamorphosisconnections.com and sign up today.
And if you are watching us tonight on Facebook, especially on my Facebook page, GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun, I would love if you would consider sending me some stars. Stars is really great because it will help the algorithm for Facebook to give me more visibility within Facebook, so we can get more people to watch and in turn get this show out more. I'd really appreciate if you all consider doing that. And to do so, it's just over where you're going to leave a comment. There's a little star icon. You can click on that. 1 star is like 2-3 cents. Once again, if you would consider doing so, I'd really appreciate it. Our guest tonight is author Chris Carter, and we are talking about his new book that just came out in February, The Case for the Afterlife. And once again, you want to check this out, go to the Amazons. All the Amazons have it. You go Barnes & Noble, Llewellyn Books. Check it out. Support these great authors with their great new books that are coming out. And Chris, in the last segment, you kind of touched on skeptics a little bit, and I wanted to know, just in general, what do you think of skeptics? Do you think that they're an opportunity to help educate them, or are they kind of a pain? What are your thoughts on skeptics?
Well, it's difficult to generalize because they're a mixed and motley crew. The ones that I'm essentially dealing with are not true skeptics. I mean, true skeptics is the suspension of belief. It's not the refusal of belief.
Mm-hmm.
It's the practice of doubt, not the practice of denial. So I prefer to call these type of skeptics phony skeptics or deniers. I started off myself as what I would call a true skeptic or an open-minded skeptic about these things.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering initially if I were fooling myself because of how wonderful some of these findings seem to be. The near-death experience, for example, seems to indicate that dying is a beautiful experience. And I began to wonder if I were fooling myself. And this is how I started getting involved with researching the claims of the skeptics, because I didn't want to, fool myself and become a victim of the confirmation bias. It's the tendency of most of us to seek out sources of information that just confirm what we already believe or what we want to believe.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I started. That's how I first encountered the so-called skeptical point of view. I found a website without much effort. It was devoted to debunking the belief in the afterlife, and I was shocked. I was appalled by the author's ignorance. I was appalled by his dogmatism, his vehemence, and the quotes he supplied from other so-called skeptics I found equally unimpressive. So I wrote to this fellow, and to my surprise, he wrote back, and we engaged in an online debate, which lasted several weeks. And in the process, I gained great insight into the so-called skeptical way of thinking about these issues. And that's what led to my first book, which was originally titled Parapsychology and the Skeptics. The rights were originally sold by my first publisher to my second publisher, and so the title was changed to Science and Psychic Phenomena: The Fall of the House of Skeptics. But that's really how it all started, just from me wondering if I were fooling myself.
And how, I mean, in forgive me if I wasn't quite getting this right. This was already down your path of research that you were still skeptical, right?
No, I began as an open-minded sort of skeptic. I
So
didn't,
still,
just
the word stands.
yeah.
Use it yourself, so I still call it skeptic.
Well, true skeptic, not a denier, but a true skeptic, someone who practices doubt, not denial. Um, obviously, when I started out, I didn't think the case had been proven beyond all reasonable doubt. I just didn't know. I wanted to investigate the evidence and follow it wherever it led. But then when I started to notice myself becoming convinced, that's when I started to investigate the claims of the so-called skeptics. As I said before, I was appalled by some of what I found. There's various types of skeptics. There's the phony skeptics that I just mentioned, but there's open-minded skeptics. They're usually like I was before I looked at the evidence. They just, don't know very much about the subject. There's also a certain amount of fear and ignorance with regards to the subject out there. It's unfortunate, but it's true.
I mean, you can't blame them, right, for fear in the fear of the unknown.
Well, what was that Plato said? We can easily forgive a child who's afraid of the dark. What is tragic is when men are afraid of the light.
But to me, that sounds like you're not giving someone a chance to be able to take their own journey, because I mean, that's part of it, is sometimes that regardless of what you or I might think as like, oh, this is a no-brainer that there is an afterlife, to some people things are very scary. And I can't help but I can't blame them for feeling that way. It might take them a while, may take them never to get to that part, to the point of believing.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of natural human reluctance, I suppose. I guess what I was referring to really was the misconception that this evidence is somehow contrary to Christian belief. I argue fairly forcefully and extensively in the book that simply isn't true. I mean, many of the original founders of the British and American Societies for Psychical Research were clergymen. A notable example would be Reverend Charles Drayton Thomas. He did a lot of research, groundbreaking research with mediums. He invented something called the proxy sittings, which essentially eliminated the skeptical objection that perhaps these successes with mediums are due to a form of telepathy operating between the medium and the sitter. The medium is essentially reading the sitter's mind and relaying this information back. Well, he invented, as I said, the proxy sittings, where a third party who didn't know the deceased visits the medium on behalf of the sitter, and all this person is given or was given was the person's name and date of death. So he did these experiments at the urging of a certain skeptic, and yet the successes continued exactly the same as before. The skeptical fellow, I forget his name, but it's in the book, he admitted that fraud and body language, reading body language, and telepathy between medium and sitter could not explain the results. And I want to read something here from the Reverend Thomas wrote. He was a Methodist minister, and as again a psychical researcher as well. He wrote, "Perhaps it will be asked what benefit may be expected from a general acceptance of this evidence for survival. I think it will do for others what it has done for me. It has supplemented and reinforced my faith, both in times of bereavement and in the prospects of old age and death. Also, it has further emphasized the value of personal religion." I mean, I don't believe for one moment that any of these, well, I shouldn't say that. I don't believe that these communications are all the work of demons or evil spirits or anything like that. I mean, Jesus said himself in John, believe not every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are of God. I mean, if death does not, or the change we call death does not suddenly transform bad people into good, then of course it's wise to test the spirits.
Sure. Sure. Uh, as far as near-death experiences, have you experienced that yourself?
Fortunately, no.
Right. I suppose. But you've talked to a lot of people who have experienced it.
Talked to very few personally. I've read a great deal of the accounts. Okay, they're secondhand accounts, but they're accounts from physicians who were on the scene. I talk about the famous Pam Reynolds case. She was a 35-year-old musician who had an aneurysm at the base of her brain. In order to remove this aneurysm, the surgeons essentially had to kill her on the operating table. By that I mean they had to induce clinical death. They had to stop her heart. They had to stop her breathing. They had to drain the blood from her brain. Now, there's absolutely no medical reason to think there was any activity at all in her brain at the time. And yet she reported one of the deepest near-death experiences ever reported. She recalled leaving her body. She accurately described conversations that were going on in the operating theater. She traveled down a tunnel. She heard her grandmother calling her. She came to a misty place where she saw various figures in the mist. Eventually, they became clear. She recognized not only her grandmother, but an uncle, some neighbors that she used to know, and various other people. She did not want to return. She argued with her grandmother and her uncle. Her uncle eventually took her back. She saw them trying to restart her body on the operating table. They shocked her heart once in an attempt to restart it. She saw her body in a reflex action sort of lurch.
Sure.
Her body did not start, or her heart did not start, rather, with the first shock. They had to apply a second shock, I should say.
Sure.
At this point, she remembers her uncle pushing her into her body, which she did not want to re-enter. And she said it was like diving into a pool of ice water. She said it hurt.
Oh, wow.
But the physicians later said, yes, we did shock her heart twice, and there's no way she should have known that. She was clinically dead, which meant she had no blood in her brain, no spontaneous breathing, and no reflexes, meaning there was no activity in her brain stem, which is the most primitive part of our brain that we share with crocodiles. So there's absolutely no medical reason to suppose that her brain was capable of generating conscious experience, and yet here we are.
You know, it's something beautiful about that, isn't it? About how people, you know, that she had to be forced back, because it's like, no, I'm surrounded by my family. This is the feeling of euphoria had to been incredible. That I mean, just imagine all these people you haven't seen in so many years, and then you're forced back. That'd be really tough.
Yeah. It's not uncommon for people not to want to return. Sometimes they do choose to return. Sometimes the choice is made for them. Sometimes there's no choice, no seeming choice made at all. They just find themselves back in their body being resuscitated.
Sure. Do you find that with the stories that the experiences that you've heard, apart from leaving your body, is there any commonalities that you have kind of logged from hearing different experiences?
Well, again, I haven't heard very many of the experiences myself. I'm essentially summarizing reports of physicians on individual cases, such as the Pam Reynolds case, and I'm summarizing the results of various studies that have been done. And some of these studies have been cross-cultural studies. There was one that I mentioned in my third book, which is all about the NDE. Well, the second book, which is about the NDE. And I talk about studies done comparing Western near-death experiences with those in other cultures, such as China and other places. also historical NDEs from different cultures. There's a lot of different commonalities, a lot of common elements. These experiences across cultures have more in common than they do than our differences.
Sure. No, I find it all very interesting. The one thing we're talking about near-death experience and talk about the afterlife is, and I had wondered this, is the belief in life after death ultimately a matter of faith?
Absolutely not. The central point of my book is that the afterlife can be proven beyond all reasonable doubt, not beyond all conceivable doubt, because that's an impossible standard. And it's really the confusion between the two different standards of proof that allows the skeptics, or the so-called skeptics, to say that, or to claim that the case for the afterlife has not been proven, despite the enormous volume of evidence that's been gathered and presented.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot there, and I think there's a lot for people to really enjoy. Once again, the book is called The Case for the Afterlife. It is written by Chris Carter. Once again, too, Chris Carter has also written Science in the Afterlife, Science and Near-Death Experience, and Science and Psychic Phenomena, The Fall of the House of Skeptics. Chris, unfortunately, I do need to cut us short for our interview tonight, but I just want to let everyone know that you can get the books through Amazon. You can get it, go to Llewellyn, and then you can see the essay that Chris has written as well. Chris, I really appreciate you coming on, and I hope that people check out this book. This is such a fascinating conversation, fascinating topic.
Okay, Greg, and thanks again for having me.
Anytime. It's good to meet you and good to talk to you. What we're going to do, stick around. We're going to finish up the last segment. You are listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950.
Reach your highest level of consciousness and well-being with metamorphosisconnections.com. Metamorphosisconnections.com is an online directory of the best holistic and metaphysical practitioners to help you make your most informed choices. You can search metamorphosisconnections.com for classes, events, wellness and life coaches, plus metaphysical products and shops. You can also search for a wide array of healers from all modalities, including EFT, sound healing, energy healing, light therapy, ancestral healing, shamanic healing, reflexology, past life regressions, hypnotherapy, yoga, and more. And if you're not sure where to start, the search feature on metamorphosisconnections.com is tailored to help both those who know what they are looking for and those who are just starting. Come explore the possibilities for your higher self by visiting metamorphosisconnections.com. Their experienced practitioners can guide both beginners and those that are already on their spiritual journey. That's metamorphosisconnection.com, your link to direct you on your spiritual transformation.
Greg Bakun here. I love historic tours of Minneapolis and seeing everything it has to offer. But if you know me, I like to include a little spooky in my tours, which is why I found the perfect combination. Minneapolis Trolley Tours does this amazing candlelight ghost tour that you have to check out. It's an extremely immersive experience. It's a trolley trip that starts out at a haunted mansion, traveling around Minneapolis locations, exposing ghost stories that the public and business owners would rather left untold. Then a tour of the aforementioned haunted mansion where ghosts of past residents from the 1800s reside, plus a lot of surprises to discover. Next, experience Gertrude's After Hours. Did I mention Gertrude is the mansion's most famous ghost? Maybe she'll show up. And you finish up the tour at Gertrude's Lounge in the haunted basement of the mansion with refreshments and Q&A. The trolleys are climate controlled and the mansion is restored to perfection. Check out MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for more information. Have you ever met someone who not only can help you on a deep spiritual level, but also potentially change your life? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who travels the nation and lives right here in the Midwest. And she offers mediumship, mentorship, house and business parties, energy healing, palm readings, and so much more. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
Hi, this is Psychic Medium Deb. I cannot wait to hear from you. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
Greg Bakun here. I've told you about the out-of-the-world roast beef sandwiches at Maverick's Real Roast Beef But I haven't told you about their Philly steak sandwiches, turkey, bacon, avocado sandwich, BLT, crispy chicken, fish sandwiches, brisket, or pulled pork. Okay, you get the idea. They make a lot of delicious food to the same standard as their famous roast beef sandwiches, and now I'm starving. I'm going to go to Maverick's Real Roast Beef off Lexington and Roseville, and you need to go too. Check out their menu at mavericksbeef.com. And join me tomorrow on GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. We are going to have a replay tomorrow. We're going to have author Paul Blake Smith on. We're going to be talking about the Nixon Gleason alien encounter, and that's quite the book as well. So if you don't have that one yet, listen to the episode tomorrow. Go to GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun, GhostBox Book Club. You can go there. There's an Amazon affiliated link. Get the book. I think you're going to love it. Check it out. And then, of course, Friday is Casual Friday. Lots to talk about there. Once again, I'd like to thank our special guest tonight, Chris Carter, author of 4 books. And the book that we were talking about tonight, The Case for the Afterlife. Very, very interesting stuff. You got to go check it out. I read through much of it, and it's such a wonderful take. And he really lays it out very well. So please go to Llewellyn Books, go to Amazon.com, wherever that you like to get books. And please, once again, the book is called The Case for the Afterlife. And, it's Adam, I'm going to be honest, near-death experiences, those have always interested me. I've always thought that was interesting stuff. I'm going to be honest, I don't know if I see things quite the way that Chris does, and that's okay. I don't have to. And he doesn't have to have the same belief that I do, but I find his direction on stuff very interesting. And I hope that people check out the book.
Yeah, it sounds very interesting, especially when he was talking about the near-death experience.
Yeah.
That he had documented in there, because 17, 18 years ago, my mother went into a coma.
Oh.
And she was clinically dead for a little bit of that time before they put her in the medically induced coma. And she was talking about when she finally came out of it, she was saying it was like she was at this very well-lit train station. And her mother, father, her grandmother, grandfathers were all there with giant bags of photos. And basically saying, come sit with us. And she was like, no, I've got other things I got to finish first, and came back. But she could recall from the moment she went to the hospital till they put her in the medically induced coma, and then the moment at the, as she called, well-lit train station with other deceased relatives.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was one of the things that that was the first thing she talked about as soon as she came out of that coma. She recanted it like, it happened 5 minutes ago, but it could have been at any point during when they medically induced the coma to when she woke up. And that was about a week. So it's amazing of what she could come out and say and what she had experienced in that near death.
Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate, not to what your mom said, but just for near-death experiences in general.
Mm-hmm.
I have often wondered if, and I don't know if this was a conversation that would have gone down well, to be perfectly honest. I've often wondered if, how you wake up and you look and your alarm clock is like, it's 2 minutes till it goes off. You fall back asleep. It seems like that you've been dreaming like a dream that lasts 5 days happen, and then the alarm clock goes off and it's like, well, it's only been 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wonder sometimes if near-death experiences could actually be something like that. That not everything that people are experiencing are near-death experiences, that they're experiencing some sort of like brain activity that's kind of giving them sort of throws
you into a REM real quick.
It throws you into a REM. I remember my mom she did some, I don't know. We don't know what she did. We don't even know how she died, to be perfectly honest. But she hit her head at one point, and it was really bad. They had to, sorry, hope you're not eating. They had to pull apart her skull to get to, because the brain was swelling. And when she came to, it was a very long process for her to recover. And I remember she's trying to tell me, because she couldn't really talk. She said that she had a premonition of this happening and that she recorded herself talking about it on tape, that this was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wow, that's incredible. And I'm like, is the tape still around? And she's just like, yep, and all this stuff. And about a week or so later, when she was much more with it than she had been, I'd ask her about that, and she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. So, I don't know, and I that to folks, don't think I am totally disagreeing with the idea of near-death experiences. I think that there are a lot of different things that happen that may feel like that, but may not be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it can depend on the person too. So I'm going to take my mother-in-law who has passed, my father-in-law who has not. Both of them on hospital beds died at certain points and came back.
Yeah.
My father-in-law, who was raised Catholic and is a very Catholic individual, swears that he saw angels. My mother-in-law, who was Jewish and not a very religious person, who had the same experience, she said she saw aliens.
Wow.
So I kind of think it depends on the person, but if you knew Michelle, aliens make sense.
Well, and even with your mom, I'm wondering where the train station came from.
My mom would only travel by train long distances. She had a fear of flying.
Oh, wow.
So in my view, since it was going to be a long distance travel, easiest way to bring that spirit that's going to be crossing over is to give them a comfortable situation. Wow. That was the way I looked at it, 18 years ago when this happened to my mom. It's like, you hate the fly. This is a long, long trip. That's why it looks like a train station.
Well, and you got to wonder what would happen if she, if for what she went through is her like flying through the air. They knew that they couldn't do that to her.
Yeah, that was my theory. Yeah.
I think that's very, very interesting. All I know is when I've heard people had near-death experiences, and I'd be curious what on your end with the ones that you just mentioned, the person who had it, he's just like, I am not afraid to die. I am absolutely not afraid to die any longer.
I would say definitely Michelle, my mother-in-law. She was always the strongest out of the three people I know who have had near-death experiences. Michelle by far was the strongest, and she would be the one who's like, if it's my time, it's my time.
Yeah. Yeah. Doug in the comments says, he says, I like the train station idea. I want that. Well, put in your request, right? I mean,
put in your request. Make that your deepest thoughts before you think you're going to die.
Truly. I think that's truly about it. But it sounds like that your loved ones may just kind of know you well enough, right? That they're just like, oh, okay.
I think so too. So when I die, we'll be sitting at a baseball, field. Or something to that effect.
Well, Kevin Smith is going to be the one walking you around heaven. He's just going to be like, hey, this is, that's how that's going to work.
Yeah, that is. And my mom will be like, oh, you found your long lost brother. For years after I introduced my mom to the Kevin Smith film, she's like, that's your long lost brother, right?
Now, if you have that and it's me showing you around, you might be like, I'm in hell, aren't I? So
I wouldn't go that far. You're one of the handful of people I actually like, Greg.
I'm in heck then. I'm in heck. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
There we go.
So kind of like Detroit.
Right. You're like, oh, wait a minute. What are you doing here? What are you showing me around for? Is there someone else I can get?
You'll be like, come into this TARDIS. Like, no. Not
yeah, right.
It's rumor in here, I swear.
Follow me. No, I'm fine. I'm fine where I'm at. Thank you. Yeah, no, I get it. It kind of also reminds me, and so we had Miriam Faresh on last night, and that was fantastic. It's so great to have her on, and we've got a lot of feedback about that already. Funny enough, good feedback. But we had talked a little bit about life contracts. And the thing about what really made me think about that is there's a picture, and if I find it, maybe I can try to find it for Casual Friday. It's a picture, I think, taken in the 80s by police at a crime scene of a crashed car. And when they take the picture and they get it developed, it looks like a double exposure, that there is a head in the corner of a teenager that is just angry.
Yep.
You know what
I
I'm
saw
talking about.
Yeah, I saw that in the if you remember the old, like, I think it was a 12 book series by Time Life.
Oh my gosh, the paranormal books by
Yes.
Time Life. Yeah.
Yes, I remember that. My aunt had that series and I would read it constantly.
I've gone to eBay a number of times thinking, maybe I should get this set. And I think sanity has prevailed because it's like, it's nice, but what am I going to do with a 12 set series of books that was written in the late 70s, early 80s, and I have all these other books that I should read for the show, and I haven't, I'm behind on those as well. But they're always beautiful. But yeah, so that book or that picture, a lot of people believe that that's a contract that ended too soon. And that's why because what we didn't talk about is that the person who died, the kid that died, actually looks like that double exposure 100%.
Oh yeah.
And so, the theory, because I don't believe in absolutes, the theory here is that perhaps this kid's contract, whatever happened was before his contract ended, his life contract ended, and he was upset about it. A theory.
And with that theory, I've always kind of wondered if that's what leads to more intelligent hauntings. If it's those whose life contract hadn't expired yet, but they did.
Yeah.
If that becomes more of your intelligent and probably some more of your angrier hauntings, where a lot of people be like, oh, it's a demon, it's a dark spirit. No, it's somebody who's just ticked off.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good a theory as any, I think. Absolutely. And, hopefully that, and hopefully the people who are experiencing that are able to get, the help. And, one of the things that Miriam and I talked about last night is there, folks like us and the people who are listening to the program will have like a kind of a advantage because we are aware, and I'm not saying because of this show, but we are aware of, that there's a term of crossing over. So if you're not where you think you should be, that you should probably cross over. That knowledge is going to be the difference between the two, the earth and what's beyond the crossing over, and that being in that middle area and not knowing what to do with that. If we find ourselves in that middle area, we know either we can stick around if we want to, or we can cross over.
I think personally, when I expire, I think I'm just going to cross over. I don't know if I want to stick around here a whole lot more.
I want to know if we can time travel. That's what I want to know. I want to go, and check out the swinging 60s and, all, stuff like that, and just be able to experience. And I here I'm thinking that we can do anything, and maybe we can, maybe we can't. I don't know. But, that's what I would like to do is I'd like to go and, first of all, there's a lot of missing Doctor Who episodes. I'd love to go watch them on broadcast. Isn't that like an abuse of power when you're like, you can go anywhere? Would you like to see the Time of Christ? And I'm like, no, I'd like to see some missing Doctor Who being aired on the BBC in the 1960s. And they'd be like,
And you know what? I've had thoughts like that too. Is it kind of free will when you pass over? They're like, you have X number of time to go do whatever before you're reincarnated, if that's the way it goes. And I've thought about that, and it's like, you know what? I just kind of want to my ghost me walk around the bottom of the ocean and see all the cool stuff that no one will ever see because of the pressure.
You keep thinking those alien bases are down there, don't you?
Damn Skippy.
I mean, that's and maybe they are. I've always my theory has always been that when it comes time for reincarnation, that it's an imprint of you, so that you as this form still exists, but the new you gets reinserted into the living, which is why sometimes you get people who maybe hasn't completely erased everything, and they remember where they grew up in a past life or something like that, or the Dalai Lama. Maybe
yeah, or these weird memories that shouldn't be yours.
Absolutely. Yeah. Savannah says, I don't think so. LOL. You don't think what? That there's time travel involved? Hey, I don't deal in absolutes personally. I think that anything is possible. We don't know. I don't think we know everything. So maybe there's, and maybe there isn't. maybe there is no time travel. Maybe I will never see those missing episodes of Doctor Who, but I mean, that's
Well, heaven is supposed to be whatever you make of it, right? So you're just going to be in a giant cinema of Doctor Who with surround sound and the vibrating chairs and everything.
That's it. I want to see it as it was actually made, not my version of what it should look like. You know what I mean? It's So I'm a purist. What can I say?
I want comfort. So you give me the reclining chairs like the AMC's and throw it on.
Now, is it like a cloud? Are the chairs like, literally made out of clouds like we always see in the TV shows when they depict heaven?
No, it's a nice leather recliner.
Leather cloud.
Oh yeah. Well, I've eaten enough cow to make every cloud leather at this point, so might as well. I've grilled enough.
Now, I love it. I'm sorry. First of all, I don't mean to be stuck on this. She says, right, no time travel. How do you know that? Okay, I'm going to be honest. How do you know that? And I don't know that there is. Don't get me wrong, but I just never speak in absolutes when it comes to any of this.
Well, if Savannah has proof, she can definitely throw it in the comments on Casual Friday.
Well, is as long as her proof isn't, am I time traveling right now? No, therefore it's not real. I need a little bit more than that. Okay. Call me, so we're already out of time here. Once again, the book was called The Case for the Afterlife. Written by Chris Carter, available on Amazon. Go to Llewellyn Books. Really appreciate his time with us. And there's a lot to get through there. So just go and enjoy that. And we'll be back tomorrow with Paul Blake Smith talking about Nixon, Gleason, aliens, all sorts of things. And then Adam and I will be back for Casual Friday. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow. Everyone, have a good night.
Come see the train